Hi, so this video is going to be about our recent field trip or seminar that we had, on-site seminar that we had at Abodu, which is an ADU provider, accessory dwelling unit provider. It is something that we did actually in person, and I tried doing a hybrid meeting for this for a few people who wanted to just attend, who couldn't make it in person. So the quality isn't as good as I'd like it to be, but the information is there, and I really encourage you to visit schedule a time to just go ahead and visit Abodu on your own because I think they have a really great resource available for you. So without further ado, here's the seminar.
All right. My name is Christian. I'm the head of sales for Abodu. I'll just start with kind of a brief overview of what Abodu is, and then we're going to jump into just some basics about ADUs, Abodu, what to expect when you guys are exploring this option for yourselves or for your loved ones. So Abodu as a whole is a prefabricated manufacturer and supplier of ADUs or accessory dwelling units. So when our units are built, they're built in a factory and they arrive on site looking just like this, ready to go. We connect them to the foundation, connect them to the utilities, and of course, we've done all the permitting and done all of the site work and all the due diligence to get the project to where it needs to be, so that all you have to do as the homeowner is say, hey, this is the color that I want, this is the kitchen that I want, and done deal. And in theory, 6 to 8 months later, you have a brand new Abodu ADU in your backyard. So I don't want to spit out too many more abbreviations before I actually tell you what they all mean. So why don't we talk a little bit about what an ADU is. So an ADU is an accessory dwelling unit, and in the eyes and the laws of California, it means that it's a permanent residential dwelling. Permanent as in it's not on wheels, it's not on blocks, but it's on a permanent foundation. It's a complete independent living facility, really, which essentially means that you've got a kitchen, a bathroom, somewhere to sleep, and somewhere to live. So that can be something as small as our studio behind you, where you still have a full kitchen, full bathroom, AC and heating, and then a shared sort of living and sleeping space, all the way to up to the maximum size of roughly 1,200 square feet for a detached ADU. It must be an accessory to the main home. So when someone refers to an accessory dwelling unit, it is just that. It cannot be its own structure on an empty parcel of land. Technically, you could take this and permit it differently as a main home and say, hey, I've got an empty parcel, I want to put my main home on it, and this is the structure that I'm going to use. But that's not something that we do. We specialize in ADUs and therefore leveraging the ADU permits that are available through your local jurisdictions in California. And they can be either detached from the main structure or attached. So the attached are, you may have heard, they're called junior ADUs or JADUs, and detached, some people refer to them as DADUs or DADUs. We build specifically and exclusively detached ADUs. Again, in the factory, we put them on a trailer, deliver them to the property, and you guys probably saw the crane in the video before. We crane it right over the main home and into the backyard. One of the really important things that we like to point out, we get a lot of these questions, is, you know, how is this different from a manufactured home? Or how is this different from a tiny home? The reality is that they are all built to different standards and they are all placed on different foundations. So a manufactured home is kind of like your double wide, what you may see in some trailer parks. They're built to maybe a HUD standard, which is housing and urban development at the federal level. But they're kind of flimsy. They're not necessarily like a permanent structure that will last you a lifetime. It's got a limited lifespan on it. And it's not a tiny home. A tiny home is on wheels. Both manufactured homes and tiny homes are depreciating assets, right? It's as if you were to purchase an RV or a car or a boat. That's not a permanent structure. It's not an appreciating part of your property. So it's an important distinction to point out because it really does, the word ADU or the abbreviation ADU really does stand for something in particular. And California wants to encourage those in particular because they're looking for permanent solutions to our housing crisis, right? and ways to increase density. So in California, you can technically go up to 1,200 square feet, right? But the important thing to note there is that after the 750 square foot mark, there are potential impact fees that come into play. Impact fees are where the city or the local jurisdiction wants to tell you, I need you to pay me X amount of dollars because now you're adding more impact to our sewer system and our water system and the electrical grid, right? And so they'll say, I'll give you an example, in Mill Valley, impact fees are $30,000, $40,000 just to connect an ADU that's over 750 square feet to the grid. And so it's kind of this tax that they give you up front. So that starts to play into your project after that size. So we decided a while ago that we could build a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom for 610 square feet that could be delivered in one piece on one truck bed. And we said, look, for now, let's make that the maximum size that we offer. We are currently entertaining the idea of building something a bit larger because we've gotten some requests for basically what amounts to an entry-level single-family home, a 2-2 with larger living quarters. Of course, that second bathroom, which everyone loves. But for now, we have our 4 models, which we'll go over in a second. After the 800 square foot mark, then local jurisdictions can start to impose their own design standards and their own engineering standards and their own code standards, regardless of what you've done at the factory. All of our units are approved at the California state level in the factory. And as long as they're under that 750 square foot mark, rather, as long as they're under the 800 square foot mark, we don't have to change anything about our units when we install them on site. So inspectors come in, they look at them and they say, okay, it's approved at the state level. All they can do is look at the site work and say, I think your drainage needs to be a little bit longer, but that's about it. When it comes to the unit itself, they can't really say or do anything about it. And the same goes for HOAs. So if any of you live in an HOA and you're concerned about what is my HOA going to do about an ADU, are they even going to let me build one? Well, California state law says that HOAs can't do anything about ADUs, which is kind of fun because no one really likes their HOA and you get to kind of stick it to them. But we have attorneys on retainer and we've fought a lot of battles for our clients and we've won every single one of them because California state law is pretty clear. Okay, maximum height. Across most of California, and I say most of because some jurisdictions have allowed you to go higher, but they can't allow you to go lower. The maximum height at the moment is 16 feet. Yeah, another important distinction for those investors who say have multifamily properties, duplexes, fourplexes that they rent out. California also said, great, add to that. So you can actually add 2 additional detached ADUs to multifamily parcels, further improving the investment in the property. Let me pause there. I know we said questions at the end, but I know this is kind of where it gets a little bit sticky. Question was whether or not there's a minimum size requirement, and it is 250 square feet. Under 250 square feet, you can actually build it unpermitted, and that's okay. And that would just be like an office or a shed, she shed, the gym, whatever it may be. But in order to fit a full-size bathroom and a full kitchen, which is what the law requires, a 250 square foot ADU is going to be really tight. Yes, yeah. So the question was, what does that do to property tax values? It's a really good question. We will get to it, but I'm happy to answer it now. It's basically, it's assessed on the newly added value of what you've placed on the property. And that's part of ADU law to continue to encourage you to build ADUs. The unfortunate side effect would be if they said, we're going to reassess the value of the entire property now. And that would really hurt from a property taxes perspective. Let's say you bought the house 10 years ago and you've got this property tax amount that you're paying, you're comfortable with. For them to come in and say, you just added $800,000 worth of value to your property, that would kind of hurt. So they are only assessing it on the newly added value that's on our contract. And they look at what is the value of the site work, and that's what they're charging. So what we see on average for added property taxes is somewhere between 15 and 2,000 a year, 1,500 and 2,000 a year in additional property taxes. So about 140 bucks a month, 180 bucks a month, somewhere in there. So tell you a little bit about Abodu and why our customers choose us. As I mentioned before, Abodu does everything for its clients. So the idea behind what we started was, let's make construction as simple and easy and painless for people as possible. And before us, there was not really a company that would come in and build a prefabricated ADU and install it and do all the permitting and do all the site work and everything that's involved to get this to where it needs to be. But of course, we came along, and a lot of the feedback that we get is, hey, I did a construction project 10 years ago and it was so painful that I never wanted to do one again. And then I heard about you guys. And so we found that to be one of the biggest draws that people find with us. We are also pre-approved in over 60 cities in California, which means that in terms of permitting timelines, we can move a lot faster than anyone else. Because we standardize and because we build in a factory, means that we just took our plans, we gave them to the state, and we gave them to the local jurisdictions and said, every time we send you a permit, it's going to look like this. It's not going to change. It'll be mirrored maybe, but that's it. So they said, great, approved, start sending us your permits. So now every jurisdiction is different, and they can decide whether or not to follow the law. And we have to decide whether or not to push them on the law, because there's 5 other people behind you waiting to install a unit in the same jurisdiction, and we don't want to upset them. So you have jurisdictions like San Jose that gives us permits in 1 week, which is unheard of and phenomenal. San Jose has been a very good partner for us. You have jurisdictions like San Leandro that takes 2 weeks, and then you have jurisdictions like Redwood City that may take 2 months. All of those timelines, however, are drastically faster, drastically lower than what we've seen in the past, especially for a project that's built from scratch. If you build one from scratch and it's not approved at the state level, regardless of its size, the local jurisdiction can start to pick apart your plans and say, our local code says that you have to have this kind of light switch in every single room, so scratch all that. And that becomes an 18-month long permitting nightmare, not to mention then building it on site for another 6 months. Yeah, minimal disruption. So that brings me to that point. If you compare it to 6 months on site of building, we instead do 2 weeks ahead of delivery on site, building the foundation and starting the trenching for utilities. Then we do the install day, which you saw the video of, that takes 8 hours. And then after install day, we've got another 2 weeks of laying down all the utilities in the trenches, closing them up, doing all of the 5 or 6 different inspections that occur on the whole project, and getting it nice and clean for you guys ready to use and handing the keys over. We are now the most experienced by a pretty good margin, and that's been confirmed with us recently. So we have just under or just over 225 units in the ground throughout California and in Seattle. The grand majority of which are in Northern California, and our hottest market, our strongest market, is by far and away South Bay and the Peninsula put together. That's why we chose this to be our headquarters. We do have an office in LA with a showroom just like this, but we have, at this point, more experience doing this than anyone else. With another 150 projects in our backlog that are, continuously getting worked on and getting installed every single week. And we believe pretty strongly in transparent upfront pricing. So as a startup, one of the things that we really cared about when we started was, how do we make construction, again, as painless as possible? One of the things that we kept hearing in terms of complaints was, my GC keeps raising the price on me for this construction project or this remodel project. They've raised the price on me 4 times, and it started at 100 grand and now it's 175 grand. So for us, the idea was, let's kind of make a lot of mistakes up front, eat the cost of making those mistakes, but in order to figure out what the true cost of a project like this looks like, so that we can work off of a historical average and tell the homeowner, you should expect this dollar figure, and it should land well within that dollar figure. And then the last, and I think one of the most important, is that Abodu builds to California standards instead of HUD standards. So you have HUD, which is housing and urban development, and then you have HCD, which is housing and community development. HCD is California standard. The difference is in a variety of things. It's in the way these things are framed. It's in the insulation that's in them. It's in the foundation that it sits on. There's a variety of different engineering standards that say, look, in order for this to work in any part of the West Coast, it has to be like this. And that includes things related to seismic activity too, right? You know, not everything is going to work in California. As we know, we're very, very special. So the reason that that's so important is that we are the only ones who build to HCD standard out of every ADU building. And so when it comes to property values, HCD units are considered real property, whereas anything else, HUD, manufactured homes, trailers, tiny homes, they're all considered personal property. The difference is that personal property depreciates in value. Real property appreciates in value, which is basically just real estate, right? And so they are considered as if you had added additional square footage to the home. One of the questions we get asked a lot is what do your average clients actually use Abodus for? Our biggest use case by far and away is aging in place. So we have a lot of people who say, hey, I've retired recently. I live in a big house. I don't need this big house. My kids live 10 minutes down the road. I'll sell my big house. I'll move into my kids' backyard and take care of my grandchildren and enjoy the rest of my life with my family all together. Or perhaps they're a lot further down the road in terms of age and maybe they need a little bit of assistance or in-home nursing care. The alternative is an assisted living facility or a nursing facility, which in the Bay, particularly in the Peninsula and the South Bay, is a $100,000 to $200,000 annual endeavor, right? And that is an expense that, quite frankly, candidly speaking, is out the window. You'll never see that money returned to you. Whereas putting an ADU on your property and having mom or dad live with you is an appreciating asset. You get mom or dad in your backyard, close to you, close to the kids. And so that's the one that we see the most of. We do get a lot of people who want to rent them out. So a couple of examples here. We have a few different Airbnbs in San Jose, and on average, they charge $250 a night, which works out to about $7,500 a month in additional revenue. One of our units financed is $1,800 a month. You can kind of do the math there on what the takeaway there is. Long-term rentals, so just your normal rental, if perhaps Airbnb is not allowed in your jurisdiction. We're seeing rents for the one bedroom in the $2,500 to $2,750 range. That's the one bedroom. And we're seeing rents for the two bedroom up to $3,600. And then midterm rentals, not a lot of people know about. We have a couple of clients who rent out their Abodu to traveling nurses who work for these nursing agencies. We'll send them around and they'll do 3 or 4 months at a time in a new city. Fun for them, they love it. And it's a great revenue stream because what you're getting is short-term rental dollars, but you're sticking to the law in your local jurisdiction that may say, hey, you've got to do a 30-day minimum rental. You can't do Airbnb. So we've got a couple of clients who are clearing net income of $70,000 to $75,000 a year just by renting out an Abodu to traveling nurses. And then the last is flex space. So it's kind of a catch-all, right? A lot of people use it as like a guest house, but during the week they're using it as an office. Maybe one of the kids from college is coming back to visit every summer and needs somewhere to stay. Maybe they want to use it as a gym. Variety of different reasons. We have 2 of our 4 models in the showroom here. I'm just showing you our 3 flagship models here. There are brochures in the back, so after this, feel free to grab some. Our 4th model, our newest model, was in partnership with Dwell magazine. I don't have it here. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Dwell, but it's a design magazine. We partnered with them and created the Dwell house, which is the 1 bedroom, a little bit larger, a lot more luxurious, just different material finishes. Behind you is the studio. This is the 1 bedroom. The 2 bedroom doesn't fit in here, but it's very similar. You can see to the 1 bedroom, you're effectively taking another room and throwing it onto this side. And either Amon or I can help you with that. If you guys want to poke around, any questions that you may have, we'll answer for you. this is on our website. It's the pricing page, and it's something that I wanted to put up here just to show you that we do, in fact, try to be as transparent as possible. Of course, every property is different, and you may have a shed that you want demolished, but you don't. And so I've got to charge you a few grand to demolish and throw away your shed and get the permit to do it. So your project, of course, is going to come out a little bit different than the next person. But what we've thrown on here is our historical averages over the last 6 months. 6 months because, of course, prices for materials and everything continue to rise and fluctuate. So this should tell you the most accurate estimate. And this includes, this average price includes permitting, an estimate on how much the average customer adds in options and upgrades and custom site work. The number above it is the base price, which does not include permit fees and taxes, usually between 8 and 12,000. And then sales tax is only charged on the wholesale cost of materials used to build the building itself, not on the site work. And that is another 4 or 5,000. Depends on the options and upgrades that you selected. So all told, what we do is we put a $15,000 allowance on the contract to say this is a catch-all. This is, through our experience, both of these numbers generally fall together under this mark. Install timeline. This is in your packets, but in reality, there's 2 routes that you can go with Abodu. You can go the inventory route. So at any given time, we do carry inventory of our units, all 3 units, actually all 4. And so if you choose one of those, of course, the project is going to move a lot faster because it's already built and it's already hosted here in California. So on those, we're looking at a 3 to 4 month project timeline. If you're looking, if you look at this unit and you say, you know what, I have to have this unit, but with that siding and that door, that means we have to build it in the factory from scratch. So now we're looking at about an 8 month on average total timeline end to end. One of the questions and requests that we continue to get for the first few years was like, who do you know that I can finance this with? How do I get this financed? And of course, interest rates were so good before that all you had to do was pick up the phone with your current lender and say, I need a home equity loan at the same rate that I have now. And they're like, fine, done. Of course, today it's a little bit different and people want some help hunting around for a good deal on their loan. So we opened up our in-house financing in January. We have an in-house lending consultant that works with our clients, excuse me, and has brokered relationships with, I think at this point, we're about 20 different lending relationships. So we're not just using one bank, right? If you were to go to Toyota, they use Toyota Finance, which really is just Wells Fargo. Whereas what we're doing is brokering a variety of different lenders. And so we work with our clients to say, what is it that you feel is the budget that you're looking for? How do you want to structure the loan? How much do you want to put down? And we then go to work on finding the loan out of our network that seems to make the most sense. At the moment, and this offer actually ends at the end of this month, we do a combination of a 3.99% first year rate.
Wow.
And then Abodu itself pays for a 3% buy down of that 3.99, giving you an effective rate of 0.99 for the first year, which right now is honestly unheard of. But to Abodu, it's worth it to us to say, look, let's help you get your foot in the door with this. And then, we hope that in a year's time, either you just go with whatever market rate is, because the 3.99 will go to market rate, or you attempt to refinance if rates have come down. This is just one offering. We, of course, have fixed rate loan offers in the 5, 6, 7% ranges. It's just all dependent on what each individual buyer is working with. I think that's it for now. So I just wanted to, thank you guys for coming in. And any questions that you may have, now's the time. We're using a crane. So we pull a crane up in front of the house, and then we pick the unit up off the truck. And you'll see here in a moment, what we say is that the unit starts flying. We strap it to the crane and we go right over the house. And that's it. I don't know if you can see it here in a second. See the feet on the side? They need enough space to extend. So we would take a look at the property and see what's possible. We also can roll it, slide it into place. We can use a smaller crane, set it in the back, then slide it the rest of the way. we get pretty creative with it. But sometimes there's just no way to do it. Sometimes people have parcels that are completely locked in by high voltage power lines, and we can't get underneath them for some reason. But we usually do okay. Crane lift itself is like 30 seconds, but they come in the morning at 8 a.m. Crane starts to set up. Then the truck with the Abodu on it arrives at about 10:30, 11, and then it lifts off at about 11:30, 12. And the crane and all the rest of the heavy equipment is out by like 1:30, and then we're there for, I don't know, an hour or two longer doing a punch list, making sure that we know exactly what's going to happen every day for the next couple of weeks. Our units come with a 10-year warranty, and that also includes a 1-year fit and finish warranty. So the 10-year warranty is for everything structural, right? The structure itself, the foundation, the utilities. The fit and finish is, let's say it arrives and no one noticed that a tile was cracked in the shower. And we got you the keys. 3 days later, you're taking a shower and you're like, damn it, there's a cracked tile in the shower. You would just call us, we'd come out, pull it out, replace it. So that's the fit and finish warranty. It lasts for just a year because, of course, you're going to put wear and tear on the unit yourselves. These are built in your traditional stick-built method. So we're not reinventing the wheel here. We're not building them out of strange interlocking foam panels. Inside the walls, in fact, instead of 2x4s are 2x6s. So deeper, stronger 2x6s framing, insulation, drywall, OSB, fire retardant material, all the rest of it. And these are built, effectively the same way that your main home has been built. So there's no reason why this won't last a couple hundred years. On the parcel, generally speaking, we connect to the utilities in front of the front door of the house. So the frontmost wall of the house, so like the front lawn itself. You have the water main is coming into the house. You have the sewer lateral that's coming into the house. And then power might be coming from underground or overhead, and the power panel is either on the side or the back of the house. So we trench in the ground to all 3 points. And we generally connect to the sewer lateral right in the front yard. So we'll unearth where it is and we'll tap right into it, connect to it. They do an inspection to make sure we did it right. We fill it back in. And it's the same with the water. We tap into the main water line that's getting the most pressure, instead of tapping into a hose bib out back that's perhaps not getting as good a pressure as what's coming in the front. In California, for the most part, in most jurisdictions, you're just going to the existing panel. You don't need a new meter. You don't need a separate panel. There are a couple of jurisdictions that now are requiring a second meter, but you can still use the same main panel. We do also require, any ADU company is going to require a minimum connection to a 200 amp main panel. Because whatever panel's there existing, if it's a 100 amp panel, chances are, well, we know for a fact that it's not going to be enough, because these units use a 100 amp sub panel for their own system. And so what we want at minimum is 200 amps. And in some cases, we have to go up to 300-400 amps. You can request that we get you a separate meter, and that's not a problem. That's a $1,200 charge, and what you get is a separate meter that your tenant can then sign up with PG&E for and pay directly. Alternatively, we also do sub-metering. So we have a couple of devices that can hook up to the water and to the electrical and measure the usage, tell you, the landlord or the tenant, how much they're using. And then at the end of the month, you just show them, and then that's what you charge them. There's a couple different ways to go about it. And the units don't use gas at all. The new construction, pretty much, you can't use gas. What we build is a concrete perimeter all the way around, so just a big rectangle. And that goes about 30 inches into the ground. It has a big footing to stop it from sinking into the ground. And then it sticks up about 8 inches off the ground. And then the unit sits right on top of it. So the height that the units sit at when they're on your property is the same height that you see here in the showroom. Once you install it, you just call them and say, I've added X amount of square feet. They say, great, that's it. There's not much to it. And honestly, if anything, our units come fire rated more so than your typical home here has. And in some cases, we add fire sprinklers as well. So in terms of like fire safety, they do very well. In California, you get about 3 inches of insulation, historically speaking. Our units all come with 6 inches of insulation on the vertical walls and 12 inches of insulation on the subfloor and in the ceiling. So a lot of people ask, I see you have black metal roofs. What does that do? We have 12 inches of insulation between them. It does nothing. They stay incredibly cool. In fact, I really encourage you guys to see one of our installs one day. And every time without fail, regardless of how hot it is, when that unit touches down on the foundation and you open the door and you walk in, it's about 10 degrees cooler inside of it for no reason, because it came from our yard in Newark. And it kind of gets a little bit of wind over there. It's a little bit cooler. And by the time it gets to the property, it's held in that cool air all day long. And you open that door and it's like, oh my God. So because this is built, well, first off, we fix it. We are the warranty department. So we have a full warranty department in-house, and we respond very quickly. That applies to appliances, it applies to the structure. But if it leaks, when we fix it as the warranty department, we're using the same GCs who installed it. And because this is built in a traditional stick build method, any GC knows how to work on this. Any roofer knows how to work on this. Any plumber knows how to work on this. And so down the line, let's say 5 years from now. No. Well, I'm saying, let's say 5 years from now, you've had your Abodu for 5 years and you say, you know what? I want to turn this thing into an L. Let's add another bedroom or another bathroom to this. You would just go out and hire a GC, they'd get a permit, and they'd do it. The number that you see there includes all of that. It does, yeah. Yeah, I think we get mixed reactions, but for those who understand what it truly costs to build here, I mean, we work out to somewhere between 550 and 650 a square foot, depending on the size of unit that you get and depending on the options and upgrades that you get. To build in the peninsula and to build in South Bay, permitted, a good size unit permitted, you're looking at $800-900 a square foot, and in some cases in this area, Redwood City, Atherton, whatever, $1,100 a square foot. The reason being is that there's something people forget very quickly. Yes, you can build a house here for $700 a square foot, 600, but it's a 3,500 square foot house, and you're getting economies of scale in this larger project. But in order for a general contractor to feel like an ADU is worth their time, because it's a smaller project, they're going to charge you more. And they're not going to get economies of scale on their materials either, because it's less material. So we get people in here time after time showing us their quotes for units of this size in the $550,000 to $700,000 range. So this is where prefab really starts to look different. All the units come with a full suite of kitchen appliances and the AC and heating. Each of the units in each of the rooms, there's AC and heating. So the studio is one room, it has one AC and heating unit. This has one bedroom and one living room, so it has 2 units. And the 2 bedroom has 3 units, and on it goes. So they do come standard with all of that. And again, because an ADU has to have a kitchen, and it has to have a bathroom, and it has to be livable. So, you know, there are certain things we have to include, and there are certain things that we go a little bit beyond and include, like the AC and the heating. In terms of permitting, absolutely, we insist on doing the permitting for our clients. Permitting is a nightmare, and we've stolen a lot of people from great cities who worked on the other side of the counter, and we said, you know exactly what you're doing, but come have fun and work with us instead. We don't offer furniture packages at the moment. So the furniture that you see in here, we have listings of, if you like it, we have lists of where we got all of it from. Material finishes, the doors. So this door behind you is our panoramic folding door versus the standard entry, which is the huge window here and the smaller door next to it. Then the appliances themselves are a little different. So our base package of appliances is a brand called either Beko or Samsung. And then if you upgrade from there, it's Fisher Paykel, which is a New Zealand brand that does the fancy drawer dishwashers and induction stoves. So that's another reason why, or another option and upgrade that would exist. So it depends on the material. Most of our materials are American made. I believe Mohawk is American, Belmont is American, Hardy Board, which is this fiber cement lap siding here, that's American. So the majority of the materials are coming from within the United States, or at the very least from North America. But the appliances are coming from, in many cases, Samsung has a factory in Mexico, and they have a factory in a couple of different factories in Southeast Asia, and so they're coming from those places. But the majority of the materials are North American. The delays, if you talk to a general contractor, they'll tell you the same thing. The delays has been in doors and windows, oddly enough. We're not entirely sure why, but outside of that, that's kind of our longest lead time item. Now, we used to be able to build a unit in 2 months, maybe a little less. Now it takes us about 3.5 months in the factory itself. No gas. Yeah, we do not use gas. Correct. It's an electric heat pump with a tanked water heater, not tankless. This is 35 by 14. Yeah, it's 500 square feet. Did start, it was 2018, so almost 5 years. 5 years this July. We've sold, I want to say 350, 360. When we've, of those in the ground already are 220-ish, 225-ish. So we've got, at this point, the most experience out of anyone who does what we do. And most of the competitors that you'll find, we don't have anything bad to say about them. They're just newer, they're younger. Some of them only have 4 or 5 units in the ground, and they're still sort of figuring it out. And I should note as well that for our first 4 years, we had an in-house, our middle 2 years, we had an in-house lobbyist. And so she helped us with the 2020 ADU law and wrote part of the 2020 ADU law in a way that benefited the area, and of course, helped Abodu get off the ground. And then this last year, she wrote the entire law, excuse me, that we passed in 2022 that included the ability to go and into front yards, as well as a variety of other tweaks to the older laws. So we have a lot of experience with the law itself, and of course, leveraging our attorneys to get us what the law says we should be able to get. When people come into the showroom and they do a private tour, which of course, if you wanted to, you're more than welcome to book a private tour. But we can also set you up with the next step. And generally speaking, the next step is an on-site assessment where we send our field tech out to basically do a 3D scan of the property. They'll take photos to document everything. You'll kind of walk them through where you're thinking you want the unit, and they'll tell you what they think might work, what won't work, as well as where they think the trenching paths are going to have to be. Sometimes we have to cut through concrete or driveways or something like that. After that on-site assessment, 72 hours later, you should be having a contract review call with your sales manager where they walk you through the results of that on-site assessment that tell us end to end everything we could possibly think of in terms of what the project is going to cost, line by line. And at that point, it's up to the client, of course, whether or not they want it to move forward. Now, simultaneously, we can also start a conversation with our lending consultant if you wanted to figure out what are your options for financing in Abodu. Thank you very much for joining. Aman and I are around if any questions you guys may have.
So that's it for the seminar portion of our visit. We did launch from there into a little tour for people to look around on their own of the 2 units, model units that are available there. There's a studio as well as a 1-bedroom. My video quality wasn't very good, so I'm not going to include that here, but I do encourage you to check out their website at abodu.com, abodu.com. And also from there, schedule a visit to go see it for yourself, because they're very well done, very nicely made, and a quick and a much easier way to be able to install an accessory dwelling unit on your property. Thank you for watching, and I hope you'll subscribe and come back for more great videos from Perisson Real Estate. Have a great day.